My name is Lyra Bellamy, and at 22 I became the principal ballerina of Asteria City Ballet, my dream title. My name was stitched into a place I'd worshipped since I was a kid, pressing my forehead to the studio mirror. Overnight, people said I was everywhere. Posters on the subway, clips on late-night TV, little girls counting my fouettes on their fingers. It felt like ignition, not arrival, like something huge had just begun, and my body finally matched the size of my hope. That night was a double beat. First, a charity concert for children with health challenges, then a black tie gala to pull the city's wallets a little wider. The curtain had barely kissed the floor when I slipped into the backstage hum, costumes swishing past, a stagehand rolling a starry backdrop, laughter echoing against cinder block walls. Rosin dust still glittered on my tights. My heart was bright and sore in that warm post-performance way. That's where he found me. Not in the gold light of the ballroom, but in the honest dark behind it. A coordinator hovered at my elbow, whispering apologies. Then he stepped through the wing as if gravity lived in his pocket. Damiano Marchetti. I knew the surname the way you know a skyline. Famous fundraisers, high-profile headlines, a glossy blend of charity and rumor. The Marchettis were old money with older loyalties. I'd even heard the word mafia murmured once behind their name. Two men in dark suits lingered a polite distance behind him, earpieces glinting. For a split second, I wondered why a charity patron needed bodyguards. But then he smiled. "Miss Bellamy," he said, voice low and warm. "Your performance, once in a lifetime." I was still half in character, half in sweat. "Thank you," I managed, trying not to gasp for breath. "We're hoping Lifetime repeats itself at the gala." He smiled like he understood both the joke and the machinery behind it. "It will. I've matched the pledges for pediatric mobility tech." He said it like a fact about the weather. Down the hall, I heard a staffer gasp at her phone. Then he surprised me in a way money never does. Maya, the girl with the purple headband, asked if you'd sign her program. Ethan, the boy who was tapping time on the balcony rail, wants a photo if you have a minute. He knew their names, not just their diagnoses or seat numbers. He remembered their names. That landed in me like a careful hand at the small of my back, steadying me. "I'll make time," I promised. Up close, his attention felt steady, supportive without pushing. He asked the kinds of questions that made my shoulders drop. Who first believed I was serious about ballet? Which injury taught me humility? What music lives in my bones when the theater is empty? He offered almost nothing about himself beyond what I could see. Discipline, wealth, a talent for smoothing the edges of a room. People in the corridor adjusted to his presence like dancers finding their marks. "I'd like to take you to dinner," he said finally. Not a demand, not a trap, just an invitation placed gently between us. "Any evening that suits you." That mattered. He didn't assume I was free. He didn't try to script my answer. I glanced at the clock above the call board. The gala was waiting. Powder and borrowed diamonds, donors with warm handshakes and practiced questions. My feet ached in that good, ruined way. "Tomorrow could work," I said lightly. "Or later this week. Let's coordinate." He nodded once, satisfied. His assistant appeared like a shadow catching up to us. I gave him my number, my personal cell, not my manager's, because it was easier in the moment, and because turning him down felt impossible. "Thank you for tonight," he said, stepping back, "not just for the dance, for what it does." The two suited men pivoted with him, precise as a corps de ballet entrance. I watched that small triangle of quiet power move into the wings and felt my pulse quicken as if I were about to attempt a risky jump, fear and exhilaration braided together. Then I turned toward the dressing rooms, toward perfume, sequins, and the faces I'd promised to greet. Out front, children clutched programs with my picture on the cover, and somewhere inside me, a new music queued up, something I couldn't hear yet but felt in the soles of my feet. A new choreography had begun, a man who spoke softly, and a silence that followed him in perfect step. He chose a brownstone that looked like it had never known a wrong angle. The door opened before I could ring, and a polite attendant took my coat with the kind of smooth choreography that comes from long practice. The dining room glowed like a stage before curtain, soft light, a table set for two, the city a million quiet lights beyond the windows. A private chef named Amalia introduced herself and described the menu like a poem. Damiano stood a step behind her, hands in his pockets, smiling as if he had nothing to do with any of it. "Only if you're hungry," he said, and of course I was. Dancers are always a little hungry. Everything was thoughtful without being showy. He'd even arranged the meal to suit a dancer's diet, lean protein, minimal dairy, because he remembered an interview where I mentioned needing a light stomach to rehearse. He mostly asked about me, what music I longed to dance to, what roles I coveted but hadn't dared to say aloud. When I described a dream program, some Stravinsky, a thunderous new composition, a performance where kids could sit on stage surrounded by the orchestra, his eyes lit up. "Done," he said simply, as if he could make any wish real. Then, "Actually, one more thing. A scholarship in your name for any kid who can't afford training. Asteria's school has a wait list. Let's shorten it." Gratitude and disbelief washed over me, along with a ripple of caution I ignored. After dinner, we listened to a Bizet record in his study until it was time for me to go. His 2 security men waited outside like quiet sentries. His gifts followed like soft applause. Before I left that night, a florist arrived with an armful of peonies, "For your mother." He remembered I'd said my mom loved flowers but never bought them for herself. The next morning, a bouquet showed up at the stage door for me. By week's end, the lobby of Asteria overflowed with blooms. He praised the things I loved about myself, my discipline, my devotion, and then he offered to shoulder every burden. "You have a rare focus," he told me one evening over tea. "It should be protected. Don't worry about the small things. Let me take care of them." There was a warmth in the way he said care, like he was wrapping a shawl around my shoulders. I let it settle there. I liked feeling chosen. I liked that he remembered the names of kids most donors would have forgotten by dessert. The first red flag didn't come as a warning flare. It unfolded quietly, neat as pressed linen. One morning during class, my phone buzzed on the studio piano. A message from our company manager. "Morning rehearsal canceled, per donor request, so you can rest." A smiley face and heart emoji tried to make it sound friendly. A minute later, Damiano texted, "Rest today. Your body is your instrument. And dinner soon?" I told myself not to overreact. Donors sometimes nudge schedules. It's part of the ecosystem. Still, per donor request glared at me. Who else could that donor be but the man who had just promised to make my dreams come true? That evening, I cautiously brought it up. He took my hand, concern soft in his eyes. "You push yourself too hard, Lyra," he said. "I don't want you to burn out. One canceled rehearsal won't steal your crown." He called it care. I nodded, even as a small part of me felt a chill, sensing a boundary had been crossed. For now, I chose to believe him. I fell in love the way a pirouette becomes a blur, one precise turn, then everything's spinning, beautiful and a little out of control. Damiano arranged my world so I could glide through it. There were cars waiting to ferry me to the theater, a table always reserved at my favorite cafe, even a seat kept empty for my mother at every performance. Of course, rumors trailed him like stray confetti. People noted his Italian roots, the old money, the hushed talk of family business. One colleague at the theater whispered mafia after he came to visit backstage. I let the gossip blow past me. How could the man who remembered a child's favorite headband and who tipped the stagehands so generously be part of something dark? It didn't fit. Kindness isn't proof of goodness. I know that now. But back then, it was easy to trust him. Our engagement was sudden. We announced it before my season's posters even came down. But I've always been taught to commit on the first intention. He proposed quietly in his music room, no grand spectacle, just him, a ring catching the light, and a steady voice asking me to be his partner forever. I said yes with every fiber of my being. Soon after, his lawyers handed me a thick prenup and a NDA. The papers were full of legalese about protecting his business privacy, our home life, and limiting what I could ever say in public. He stroked my hair as the lawyers explained it was for our protection, so no tabloids could pry into our lives. I realized then I knew almost nothing about the inner workings of his world. I'd never pressed him about his business. Perhaps I didn't want to know if those whispers were true. Either way, I signed wherever they pointed. I've been signing contracts my whole life, and this felt like just another role I was agreeing to play. Once or twice in those weeks, I caught a glimpse of a different Damiano. Late one night, I woke to hear him in the next room speaking in rapid, hushed Italian on the phone. I caught the word familia, family, more than once. He never told me what that call was about. He just said it was work and not to worry. I didn't press him. I preferred to believe I already knew everything I needed to. We married on a windswept coast at a cliffside estate. The day was picture perfect. My veil flew like a sail in the breeze, and his hand stayed firm around mine. In every photo, he's by my side, looking at me like I'm a miracle. His 2 security men attended as guests, blending in except for their watchful eyes. For a wedding gift, he gave me something beyond my wildest dreams, a private dance studio at the top of his skyscraper just for me. My name was etched on the door. Inside was a flawless sprung floor, endless mirrors, and a sound system fit for a concert hall. "You'll never have to beg for practice space again," he said, smiling as he unveiled it. I kissed him, truly grateful. He understood exactly what a dancer craves: space and time. Only later, when I was alone and stretching in that studio, did I notice the tiny cameras embedded high in the corners of the ceiling. "For safety," Damiano explained when I cautiously asked. He rested a hand on my back and pointed out a hidden panic button by the sound system. Break-ins, insurance, security. He had all the reasons. He asked me to humor him. I almost joked, "What, are we expecting the mob to come steal my pointe shoes?" A nod to the rumors, but he looked so earnest that I swallowed the comment. I let the word safety hang in the air like another promise and told myself it was just an expression of love. After we returned home, my world got even quieter. My phone, which had been buzzing constantly with post-wedding excitement, suddenly slowed. "Your old number's too public now," Damiano said one night as he handed me a new phone. "Use this one. Elise will handle your calls and messages so you can rest and focus." Suddenly, all my communications ran through his assistant. Friends would text me and get polite responses from Elise instead. My mother would call and find her line redirected with an update that I was busy rehearsing. If I wanted to reach out to someone, I had to go through Elise. "You work so hard, darling," Damiano soothed when I bristled at feeling cut off. He would massage my shoulders and murmur, "Let me filter out the noise. You should save your energy for the things that truly matter." It felt caring, the way he said it. And I wanted to believe it was love, not control. Around that time, I was slated for a major tour, a 5-city series that would have been a highlight of my career. I was thrilled. But Damiano gently suggested I reconsider. "Think of your brand," he said, almost as if we were discussing the weather. "Tours are unpredictable. Unfamiliar stages, exhausting travel. One bad fall or a tired performance, and the press will start whispers that you're slipping. Why risk it?" "I've performed tired before," I laughed, "and I don't fall." He just smiled and stroked my hair. By the next day, the ballet board, no doubt swayed by his influence and generosity, announced that I would instead headline a special gala at our home theater. The tour was postponed to preserve the excellence of our principal ballerina. It was worded like flattery, but I knew what it was. I remember staring at my half-packed suitcase and realizing that even my career was now being quietly choreographed by my husband. After that, his care intensified. He had a GPS tracker installed in my car, supposedly for insurance purposes. He gifted me a sleek wellness ring and app that monitored my sleep and recovery. If my daily score was low, he'd insist I skip morning class or take a rest day. Elise continued to vet every call and message. On more than one occasion, I'd pick up my phone to find she had already replied to texts I hadn't even seen yet. It wasn't just annoying, it was eerie, as if someone had started living my life for me. And I saw his touch in other areas too. Costume designs that once celebrated my body's athleticism suddenly came back from the board with modifications: higher necklines, longer skirts. Feedback always framed as concern for family audiences. Roles I was known for, the fiery or sensual ones, were quietly dropped from my schedule. Instead, I was cast only in the pure, elegant roles that fit the narrative of the perfect ballerina wife. In public, Damiano was still the dream husband. He would hold my hand at events, brag about my talent to anyone within earshot, and donate lavishly to my company in my honor. People constantly told me how lucky I was, how much he obviously adored me. I wore those compliments like armor, assuring myself they were right. In private, he found gentle ways to correct me at every turn. "Maybe don't share that rehearsal video online, love. It spoils the magic for the audience," he'd say softly. "Let's skip sushi tonight. Too much salt isn't good before a big day," he'd chide if I wanted a late dinner. "I'm not sure that new coach is a good influence. He seems harsh," he'd warn if I mentioned a tough training session. Each comment came wrapped in concern, so I'd feel guilty even thinking of it as control. One night, I casually mentioned that my partner and I were excited to try a daring new lift in an upcoming ballet. Damiano immediately shook his head. "Better not, sweetheart," he said, sympathetic eyes on me. "One slip could end your career. It's not worth it." The next morning, I found out he had already contacted my artistic director, insisting the choreography be changed back to something safer for me. It was done without me ever agreeing. He told me later that day, "It's sorted," as if he'd fixed a scheduling conflict and not stripped away my agency. That word, sorted, landed like a closing door. I tried to be grateful. I told myself many dancers would kill for a partner who cared this much, who moved mountains to support them. But gratitude and resentment started to tangle together in my gut. Late at night, I'd find myself lying on the floor of my private studio, staring at the red pinpricks of the cameras overhead. I felt the building's silence press in on me. I felt the invisible web of trackers and monitors around me. I started to wonder if this was really love, or just a beautiful cage. A minor accident finally shattered my denial. I sprained my ankle in rehearsal. Just a small roll, nothing I hadn't bounced back from before. Immediately, Damiano intervened. "No performances for a while," he decreed, as if I belonged to him more than to the ballet. He insisted on the best medical care, an MRI, which showed a little swelling, and a personal physical therapist named Jonah to come to our home every day. Jonah was polite and skilled, but I quickly realized he answered to Damiano above anyone else. "I'll update Mr. Marchetti on your progress," he'd mention after our sessions. If I tried to push myself, Jonah would gently shake his head. "Let's take it slow. We don't want you back on stage until you're absolutely ready." The company put out a statement that I was taking a short hiatus to recover and recharge creatively. Understudies took over my roles. My name vanished from the program. One afternoon, I walked through the theater lobby and saw a poster for the upcoming ballet. Another dancer had been posed and photographed for what used to be my role. I stood there in front of that giant image of not me and felt my throat tighten. It was real. I had disappeared from my own life, and hardly anyone seemed to notice. I felt more like a valuable possession being preserved on a shelf than an artist. Maintained, not trusted. Watched, not truly seen. Still, I went to my penthouse studio daily to keep in shape. But even there, I wasn't alone. The lights were automatically bright, and I couldn't dim them. The cameras were always watching. If I attempted an extra run-through of a piece, Jonah would appear with a friendly reminder to rest. When I asked the artistic director if I might slip into a small group number coming up, he replied with a corporate softness that didn't sound like him. "We want you at 100%, Lyra. Don't worry, you'll have your moment when you're completely healed." It sounded like Damiano's language coming out of someone else's mouth. My best friend Tessa tried to visit me one afternoon during this hiatus. She showed up at our building with coffee and flowers, hoping to surprise me. Security called up to ask if she had permission to come up. I was horrified. Since when did my friend need permission? I said yes, of course, send her up, but by the time I got downstairs, she was gone. Later, I found out Elise had intervened, telling Tessa I was sleeping and that we'd arrange another time. The sunflowers Tessa brought were tossed in the trash bin in the lobby. That night I lost my temper. It was the first time I truly raised my voice to him. "Why did you send Tessa away? She's like family to me, Damiano." He listened calmly, which only made me angrier. "You needed rest," he said. "You're still healing. She should have called first." "She shouldn't have to. She was just being a good friend." "She also posted a selfie from our lobby last week," he interrupted softly, showing me Tessa's social media post, geotagged at our address. "I know she meant no harm, but that put you in danger. Anyone could see that and know where you live now." I opened my mouth, then closed it. I hadn't known about the post. He gently sat me down and went over a litany of recent incidents he had apparently been tracking. A suspicious man at the stage door one night, a disturbing message I'd received online, a news article about a dancer from another company who had a stalker. With each example, I felt my anger wilting, replaced by a sickly worry. He had been collecting these things to keep me aware of how precarious my safety was. "I'm not angry at Tessa," he said, wrapping me in his arms because by then I was trembling. "I know she means well, but I can't take chances with your safety. From now on, no one comes up here without clearing it with me or Elise first. Anyone who visits will have to sign a little privacy form, okay? Just until things settle. Let me be the harbor, Lyra. The ocean is beautiful, but it's full of teeth." I should have objected, but I was drained. In that moment, his reasoning made a twisted kind of sense. I agreed with a numb nod. After that, my world got even smaller. Even phone calls to my parents were scheduled in advance. Damiano began deciding which events I should attend and which I should skip for my health. He isolated me under the guise of protecting me from all the wolves out there. And I let him. Because by then I was scared too. Eventually something had to give. And it did. It wasn't one thing, but a series of little rebellions stirring inside me. I told Elise I would handle my own schedule and calls for a while, that she could step back. She answered by quietly forwarding every message straight to Damiano, of course. I told my company's director I was ready to rehearse again and would even join the corps de ballet on stage if I had to. I even told Damiano I planned to attend a casual open rehearsal at the studio, open to the public, to get back in touch with the dancers and community. He raised an eyebrow at my sudden independence, but he didn't stop me. Or so I thought. The next morning, when I arrived at Asteria, I was greeted with an avalanche of roses. Literally, crates of long-stemmed red roses were being unloaded into the lobby. By noon, the entire building was filled with them. Cameras and reporters soon followed because Damiano had orchestrated a press conference to announce a huge endowment to the ballet's community programs, in my honor. He presented it as a celebration, funding for scholarships and free classes, all because his wife, me, believed so passionately in giving back. I stood beside him, stunned, as flashbulbs went off. He slid an arm around my waist and spoke into the microphones about the future of the arts, about giving children a chance to dream. Suddenly, the story wasn't Lyra wants her independence, but Lyra and her husband's grand charitable mission. It was a masterstroke. In a single move, he had outmaneuvered me completely. He turned my attempt at independence into another chapter of our story, another glossy headline about our perfect partnership. By evening, every news outlet ran photos of us beaming amid the roses. Perfect marriage, perfect mission. The scent of roses was so strong it clung to me, giving me a headache. When it was over and the reporters left, I felt my cheeks aching from maintaining a smile. Damiano brushed a kiss on my temple and whispered, "See, we're on the same team." I had no words. I just nodded and stayed quiet, saving face in front of the few people still around. Inside, I felt sick. I just wanted to escape upstairs and dance out my anger in my studio where I could be alone. But when I pressed my key fob to the studio's door, the light flashed red. Denied. I tried again and again, but the door stayed locked. My access had been revoked. Before I could even fully process that he had literally locked me out of my own sanctuary, my phone rang. It was him. "Come back to the apartment, darling," he said softly. "Let's have dinner and talk." "You locked me out of my studio," I said, voice shaking. He sighed as if I was being willful. "I adjusted your access temporarily. We need to realign on what's important. This isn't a punishment, my love. It's just a pause until you remember that our marriage, our life, comes first. Your dancing will still be there tomorrow. Tonight, come home." His tone was gentle, reasonable, and utterly terrifying. I hung up on him. My hands were shaking with anger and fear. Probably the first time I'd ever done that. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Instead, I found myself sitting on the floor of the locked studio's hallway, my back against the wall, trying not to cry. I felt all the things he'd put in place around me tightening like a net. When I finally returned to the apartment, I was quiet. I pretended everything was normal, but inside I was making decisions. Late that night, with Damiano asleep, I went through my dance bag. I had a strange hunch and it paid off. Tucked into a frayed seam, I found a tiny recording device, the kind journalists use for covert interviews. He had been bugging me. My stomach lurched. In all my fears, I hadn't truly believed he'd go this far. In that moment, my heart broke. This wasn't love or care, it was possession. I forced myself to stay calm and put the device back exactly where I found it. I couldn't let him know I was onto him. Down in the garage, I searched my car and found not one but 2 trackers. The obvious one he'd told me about for insurance, blinking innocently under the dash, and a second covert unit magnet clamped under the rear seat. That one likely fed directly to him if I ever tried to run. A strange calm settled over me then. I didn't confront him. I knew I had to act carefully and silently if I wanted my life back. The next day, I began to quietly prepare my escape. My nerves were on edge, but I forced myself into a state of calm focus. There was no room for panic now. I deleted the wellness app from my phone, claiming it must have crashed during an update. I turned off location services on every device I could. I started squirreling away cash, small amounts he wouldn't miss. A $20 from the grocery money here, a $10 from the taxi fare there. I hid the money in an old, unworn point shoe, in vitamin bottles, tucked in the linings of coats I never used. I also gathered a few precious things, the delicate gold necklace my grandmother gave me, a couple of sentimental photos. Nothing big that he'd notice missing. I planned to travel light. Over a week or 2, I pieced together a plan. I paid attention to when he was in meetings or away from home. I memorized bus routes using an old paper schedule rather than anything digital. I even snuck to the public library to send a brief email to my mother from an account he didn't know, telling her I was coming home and begging her not to tell anyone. Finally, I waited for the right moment. Early one morning, before dawn, before Elise or anyone else could start monitoring the day, I slipped out. I left the expensive smartphone he'd given me on the kitchen counter, knowing it would sit there and make it look like I was still home. I took a cheap prepaid phone instead, one I'd bought weeks earlier with cash and kept hidden in a tampon box, one place I knew neither he nor Elise would ever look. I walked calmly out of the building carrying a gym bag as if I were headed to an early workout. Inside were just the basics, some clothes, a few essentials, my stash of cash, and my battered old point shoes. My heart was hammering, but I kept my face neutral for the security cameras. I went to the central bus station and paid cash for a one-way ticket out of the city. As the bus pulled out, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The city skyline slowly shrank behind us. I stared out the window, trembling. But with each mile that passed, I felt a bit of the tightness in my chest loosen. I kept silently telling myself, just keep moving forward, don't stop. I stayed off the grid as much as possible. I swapped out the SIM card in my little phone and dumped the old one in a gas station trash can just in case. I watched the sun rise through a grimy bus window and felt hope fluttering inside me for the first time in months. After a long, numbing ride, I finally arrived in my hometown. I was exhausted and jittery, but relief and excitement propelled me forward. I imagined my mom's arms around me, the smell of her laundry detergent, the sound of my dad fussing over whether I'd been eating enough. I walked from the bus stop to my parents' street just as dusk was falling. The porch light was on. I could see the silhouette of my mother in the front window, pacing slowly as if watching for me. My eyes filled with grateful tears. I was home. I was almost safe. Then, like a bad dream breaking into reality, I saw the car. Parked across the street, engine off, was a slate gray Maserati. I recognized it instantly. I stopped in my tracks, ducking behind a neighbor's tree. The car looked empty at first, but then I saw a flicker of movement. The street lamp revealed the outline of someone in the driver's seat. Even from a distance, I knew the shape of those shoulders. My blood ran cold. I bit down hard on my lip to keep from crying out. He was there, waiting. He must have tapped my mother's phone or monitored her email. Maybe that email I sent wasn't as secret as I'd thought. Or maybe he had simply guessed where I would go. It didn't matter. He was here. I could just make out one of his security goons standing outside the car, leaning casually on the hood, eyes on my parents' front door. My mother was right inside, blissfully unaware. I nearly sobbed with frustration and heartbreak. I had come so far. I was so close to safety, and yet I couldn't take another step. If I went to the door now, I'd be leading the monster straight into my family's home. Swallowing down every instinct to run to my mom, I turned and slipped away through the shadows. I cut through the neighbor's yard, my breath hitching, tears burning hot in my eyes. I didn't stop moving until I was a mile away, lungs on fire, the cool night air mixing with silent sobs. I didn't go home that night, or the next. I found another bus leaving town before midnight and got on it without a second thought. As we pulled away, I stared out at the dark, familiar streets of my childhood and mourned the reunion that had been stolen from me. That was 2 years ago. Since then, I've been living off the grid as best I can. I pay cash for tiny month-to-month rentals and leave before anyone starts asking questions. I change phones often. I have a handful of fake names I use whenever I have to fill out forms. I stay out of the spotlight and away from social media like a ghost. I haven't been back to dancing on stage, but I've taught a few under-the-table ballet classes at community centers, moving around before anyone can get too curious about my background. In those moments, as I watch a child discover the thrill of movement, I feel a spark of what I loved about my art. It reminds me that dancing is still mine, even if the spotlight isn't. Is it lonely? Yes. But I'm alive. I'm free. That's worth it. Sometimes I still wake in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, certain I heard his voice in the hallway outside. I catch a whiff of a familiar cologne in a crowded market, and my stomach drops until I can get away. Once, I came back to a sublet apartment to find a single peony in a vase on the table and nearly vomited from fear. I was out of that city by nightfall. Whether it was from him or just a coincidence, I'll never know. I don't take chances anymore. I used to dream of a life on stage, of bouquets and ovations and seeing my name in lights. I had that life and I nearly lost myself in it. Now my dreams are smaller, but feel more urgent. I dream of a morning where I wake up and don't immediately feel the urge to run. I dream about things I used to take for granted. Having a phone that nobody tracks, a window that isn't watched by a camera, a front door that only I have the key to. I dream of being free in the most ordinary ways, buying my own groceries, taking a walk without looking over my shoulder, dancing in my living room just because I feel like it. I've learned that peace and freedom are worth more than applause. I would rather be unknown and safe than adored and controlled. I still believe that someday when I truly feel safe, I'll dance again under the lights or even just under the open sky, on my own terms with no one controlling the music. Until that day comes, I'll keep moving. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know who I am now, and that's something he can never take from me again. He once told me my body was my instrument. Well, now I'm finally the one deciding how it plays. I keep that truth like a secret dance step deep in my bones. I am finally, truly, and completely mine. Completely.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and explore our channel for more love, betrayal, and redemption tales.